Welcome to the Harbaugh Coaching Academy, led by the main headliner of the Harbaugh Coaching Academy, John Harbaugh. Obviously, there's other Harbaughs involved with Jack and Jim and everybody that's part of the family, but this is John's baby, and it's been such a great thing to watch it take off. And this is actually our first interview, but it's actually the first time you and I have ever been on a Zoom together in all the years of knowing each other. And I know Zoom hasn't been around forever, but it's an honor to do this, John. So how are you?
Doing great. I'm a little surprised that you and I were able to figure out the technology and actually get this thing hooked up.
Well, we weren't. We had help. But the
You got to
good
be
news
honest
is,
about it.
exactly. I don't pretend to know. Everybody that's watching this that follows football knows that this past Tuesday, was a huge day in the NFL with cut day. Tell me your first initial reactions when you have to get ready for cut day.
Well, you know it's coming, and everybody knows it's coming. It's not the type of thing that really needs to be talked too much about. It's an understood factor. You go in with 90 players in the training camp, and you come out with 53. And then you get a chance to add 16 more to your practice squad, and everybody does the math. The players especially do the math. We tell them, Tom, not to count numbers, and inevitably we all count numbers. But the main thing is to take care of today. And we talked to them about yesterday. That was the message, was today. And it's kind of been the message every day, how you approach today. Tomorrow has enough worries of its own, and today is what really matters. And it's a big day in the NFL because it's a business day. It's when the roster gets cut down and you make your roster. And for guys trying to, make their dream come true, or everybody in a different place, it's a big day. So the focus was, let's just make it a good day today. Let's have a good practice. Let's do the same thing you did every today up until this today, the same way you did, and then tomorrow will take care of itself however it does, because every single player is on their own journey, just like we're all on our own journey, yet we're traveling together, and we're traveling together as a team with one another, who we've been put with, and we help each other along the way to be the best we can be, then we see where we go from there. And I feel like that kind of an understanding kind of builds a brotherhood, and our guys were great about it, and some guys made the team, and some guys didn't, and we had those conversations, which are challenging and tough and great, and all the whole gamut. I mean, there's a whole gamut of emotions that you go through on a day like that.
Well, let's hit into that, because I think it was interesting that you had the majority of your team on the practice field yesterday before the cuts. And I'm not sure if that's commonplace everywhere, but it speaks to you, and it speaks to how you and the Ravens have done things for a long time. I know, knowing you, I know those conversations aren't easy, but I also know that you're going to give them something that they can hold on to, that they can gravitate to as they go forward. What is the underlying message you want to give the people, for the majority of those young players, that this might be their first time through it or second time through it, and you've had to let them go? What's the message you want to leave them with?
Well, part of the message is just what you opened up with, the point about having the whole team on the field. We did, and first of all, we wanted to have the best practice we could have, but we also wanted to send the message that we are in this together right up until the end, and that everybody's a part of this team, and even the guys that aren't going to be back, even not on the practice squad, or even guys that get claimed to other places, have been part of this journey, and the brotherhood remains, and they will, once a Raven, always a Raven. We say that and we mean it. So we weren't looking to, offload players before the very last minute. We wanted everybody to know that they were valued and they were important, and they're a part of this wherever it goes. So that's the biggest thing. The second part is the part you're talking about, the individual part, and that's really an individual thing. That is meeting people where they're at in that point in time, and every single player is in a different place, And some guys I talked to on the field before practice, because I just felt like I needed to, just because there's a lot of anxiety. We tell the guys all the time that there's nothing to be anxious about. Tension is a good thing. There's going to be tension. Tension is strength, but anxiety it robs you of your strength. So some guys needed to know where they stood. And in some cases, it was, hey, you're not going to make the team. You know that, but we want you on the practice squad. And I had one guy yesterday, right before practice, he gave me a hug, and I thought it was kind of a relief, but I thought for a minute he was going to kind of choke up a little bit, because that's a big accomplishment to know that you're wanted tomorrow on the practice squad if you don't get claimed by some other team. 4 or 5 guys I spoke to before, and then 20 some guys after practice, each guy in their own place, and everybody kind of in a different spot. It was 1 minute you're hugging a guy and there's celebration. Next minute guys are so appreciative and grateful, and you're expressing your gratitude to them. And next minute you've got a guy that's really emotional, and because it turns his life upside down, and you work your way through that.
Well, this leads to something else, and this is the beauty of doing something like this because you've got your next question like I do, but then it leads to something right way which I think is so pertinent to so many different people is that people want to be
Right.
understood, right? They always talk about the fact you give people time and let people speak, but they want to be understood. And I think what you just did is gave a great example of the gamut of emotions that go through somebody because you can preach don't be anxious as much as you want, but that naturally is where a lot of people go with this. And I think this is one of the great keys to you and really Jim's coaching over the years I've known you guys is the players feel a connection because they feel they're being heard. And it doesn't mean that you're going to do everything that every player thinks you should do to win football games. But you do have a master ability of like you say, meeting people where they are and letting them be understood. Can you elaborate on that
Yeah,
a
it's a
little
great
bit?
way to put it. And one thing I love about you, Tom, is you have an ability to dig deep into, the meaning of kind of how we treat one another. But it comes back to relationships and being understood. Yeah, is a big part of it. I mean, we all want to be valued. We want to be understood. We want to know that we're important. But to do that, you have to get to know somebody. You have to take the time to talk to people. And you know, in the NFL, I would say pro sports, but to me, it's even more true in college sports. I saw you run your programs this way. You know, with players, the old style of coaching that it's this hierarchy, there's definitely an authority factor, coach, player, captain, administrator, owner, general manager, all these things are involved. But at the end, it's a partnership. Just like life is a partnership. Everything is a partnership. It's built on relationships. It's built on mutual understanding. It's built on shared values. It's built on a shared worldview. You know, the kind of people that thrive in Baltimore with the Ravens for all these years have been people that love football. I mean, we make no bones about the fact that, we're here for football and all the things that go with that, because undergirding that, the foundations of loving football and being great at it are all the things that are the undergirdings of being great at anything. Discipline, hard work, enthusiasm, unknown to mankind, taking care of one another, being a great teammate, showing up to work, ready to work every single day. I mean, these things are the things that we really value, and we get a bunch of guys that believe in that. Then it's easy to partner with those guys because they see things kind of the same way, and then we're always reinforcing that. And then the individual thing and the individual part is the coaches that build their team around their players. I saw you do it with Anthony Edwards at Georgia the very first year. You took a guy who was where he was at, and you took him in 1 year to being ready to be the top pick in the draft and have great success in the NBA. To me, that's what your job is as a coach. You're there for the player. Just like a teacher. I mean, if you're teaching for any reason other than you love your students and you want to see your students thrive, then you're probably teaching for the wrong reasons. If you're coaching for any other reason than you want your players to thrive and be successful, your players should always know and believe that you're in their corner. We try to build our offense around our quarterback. We're not trying to put our quarterback into a system that's prefabricated, that's already been built for some general quarterback or some scheme, or just because that's what the coach knows. We want to learn as much as we can about the people that are playing for us, their strengths, the things that they're average at. Keep improving everything, but build them toward their strengths so when they go out there they can be successful. Then also, Tom, have them understand the fundamental self-evident truths of the game, which are, we're going to play hard, we're going to run to the ball, we're going to be physical, we're going to be mistake free, we're going to try to operate pre-snap the right way so we get a head start on the play. All the little fundamental values that are important in football to make sure the guys not just understand it, but they embrace it and they make it their own. Then that gives them the best chance to be successful. And at the end, if you're lifting up your players, bottom up, then you have a chance that when you have those conversations at the end, day like yesterday, they know that you care about them, you love them, you want what's best for them, and we'll go from here.
Those are great points. And that pivots right into the next part of yesterday is you had undrafted free agents make the team. Not only drafted rookies, but the Ravens have always been one of the top teams in the NFL over a period of time of keeping undrafted free agent rookies. And I don't know the exact numbers, but I know they're high, right? Bill Belichick had a really high number like that for a long time. When Bill Polian was with Indianapolis, they had a high number. Well, the Ravens in your regime there have had that. Let's pivot to what it's like when you tell somebody. Let's use Reuben Lowry III. Okay, I've read a little bit about him. Bruce Feldman did a nice tweet about him. Reuben Lowry III from Chattanooga, 5'9", 180, 4-year graduate, 4.0 in mechanical engineering, and he doesn't get drafted, and he makes the Baltimore Ravens. What's that like when you get a chance to see that and tell a player like that he has made the team, and what makes that happen?
Well, I mean, what makes it happen is a lifetime of, hey, how about the way this guy, this young man was raised? How about his parents? I can only imagine the phone call that he had with his mom and dad, when he found out he made the team, which he found out in the morning before practice, and Eric brought him up, and
wow,
I think he thought he was coming up to get cut, and Eric goes, let me do this with these three guys. So he brought the three free agents up and into their office, and one of the guys said, he goes, dang, he goes, you're gonna cut me before practice? I don't even get to do my last practice. And he wanted to practice before he got cut. And Eric he's a master.
That's the Raven way. That's what you've established.
That's the Raven way. And then he found out he made the team. I mean, it's just emotional and it's meaningful. And I always just think about, because, we're both dads and our kids played sports and they're involved in things. And, you're living and dying with every day. I mean, how'd practice go? What'd the coach say? Did you make any plays out there? How'd it go? Oh, you had a bad play. Tell me about it. You're living and dying with that phone call. I remember Allison would call at night, and I just couldn't wait to talk to her. And she'd always be like, we'd be talking around it, and then finally she'd go, I'd be like, well, how'd practice go? And she'd go, I knew you were going to ask that. It's like, I got to ask, how did practice go? And so you see these guys make the team, and it has been amazing, and it's not a token opportunity. We don't run an hour and 15-minute practice here like some teams do, where only the starters get their reps, and guys get 1 or 2 reps for the whole practice because they're on the quote-unquote third team. We practice a little bit longer. We meet a little bit longer. We have walkthroughs a little bit longer because we owe these guys a fair shot and an opportunity to be the very best they can be, and we're coaches. Our job is to coach every single player on the team. You coach the 90th quote-unquote player just like you coach Ray Lewis or like you coach Lamar Jackson. You coach them the exact same way because that's your job, and because you never know. You never know when a Reuben Lowry is going to start making plays, and you're going to be like, who's this guy? Wow. Oh, he's got a knack. He's got a feel for the game. He's really got a nose for the ball, so to speak. And then they repeat it day after day, and the next thing you know, they're in the conversation, and it's just awesome. It's amazing.
Yeah, and there's so many points here. We're gonna have to do another one at some point, I know, but let's hit into this, because what you said, everybody thinks everybody practices the same way in the NFL, just like everybody thinks they practice the same way in college basketball. They don't, right? And there's a lot of people that are really good at scheme. There's a lot of people that are really good at the buzzwords and the mantras and the PowerPoint presentations, and all that stuff's got its place. But you're developing players and people at the same time. And Jim is so much the same way. When we worked out our walk-ons, whether it was especially, I didn't do it all the time at Marquette, but definitely at Indiana and even at Georgia, I was always on the court when we did extra work with those walk-ons, because my belief was always, and I learned this from you, and I learned this from Jim, if they're good enough to be on your team, okay, they're not only good enough to lose a game for you, they got to be good enough to win a game for you, right? And you can't just assume that that's going to happen. And I think we can see this right now, like with what Jim's got going with Trey Lance in San Francisco. High pick, doesn't really play, doesn't really develop, gets traded to the Cowboys. Mike McCarthy starts to unlock some things in him, even though there wasn't a lot of playing time. All of a sudden, he's with Jim. He makes the 49ers. There's development there. Talk about, I get so fired up about this. Talk about how important it is as a head coach to not only oversee the development, but to make sure that every coach on your staff, everybody that touches your players, understands that development of the whole player, positionally and as a person, is happening on a consistent daily
Tom, I
basis.
saw you do that as a coach all those years because you care about your players. I mean, anybody can evaluate a player. Any fan in the stands, anybody in the building can look at a player and say, he's good, he's not good, I like the way he plays, I don't like the way he plays. The coach's job is to develop the player, to grow the player. We got a big sign that says keep growing, keep growing, keep growing as a player, keep growing as a coach. Your job is to find a way to help that guy. And every player wants you to help him be better. Every player is just inside. They're crying out, help me. Help me be a better player. Unlock my potential. Find a way. Do the things that I do well so I can shine. I want to shine. I'm here to work hard. I'm yours. And when a coach takes that approach, okay, then that player will love them for the rest of their life. I've seen it with the guys, the Dwayne Wades that call you back, and all the guys that even the fans don't know about. Tom, we had Allison's in law school now, second week, and she has a guy come up to her, and they kind of start talking. One of the classmates, and he's an Indiana grad, and they were talking about John and Jim and your dad, and she goes to Indiana. She goes, "Wait, my uncle was a basketball coach at Indiana." And he's like thinking like assistant coach or something. She goes, "Oh yeah." He's like, "Oh yeah, who?" She goes, "Tom Crean." He's like, "Tom Crean? Tom Crean is your uncle?" He goes, "Tom Crean is a legend. Tom Crean is a legend at Indiana. I love Tom Crean. I grew up watching Tom Crean coach Indiana basketball." It was like one of those moments I thought, okay, I just thought, how does that happen? It happens because you pour your heart into something and that people see it. Like sometimes people don't really, people aren't basketball experts. They're not football experts necessarily, but they're fans of the game. They watch the game. They judge. It's like somebody that goes to a five-star restaurant, Tom, and they have a meal. I don't know what goes behind. I don't know how they got the menu. I don't know how they got the dish organized. I'm not sure what spices are in the meal. I don't even know how they organize the waitstaff. I just know if it's amazing, I know it's amazing. I know it's awesome. And I know the manager, whoever's running this place, I know he's a great leader, right? Same with football, basketball, same with coaching. When you watch it and it's special and it's amazing, you know it when you see it. People saw that in your programs, People see that hopefully in our programs. That's what you want at the end of the day. People to look at it and go, man, I'm a fan of the Ravens because you know what? I just like what they stand for. I like what they're about. I like what their coach says. I like what their players say. I like the way they play. They do it the right way. That's people's way of expressing, I see excellence in that. And to me, that's what a coach should be striving for. Tom, the coaches that were the best ones were the ones that took that approach with my daughter. And the ones that didn't, the ones that were just the evaluators, it was hard to love those coaches as much.
Yeah, and I was going to save that, but let's head into that, and then we're going to get back to some of the key traits that a player has got to have when they're in that environment where they're getting developed all the time. But I want to ask that because I think it's so important for people to hear this because there's so many parents that are coaches that are parents, right? And they may not necessarily be coaching their own child, and it's really hard. We could spend 2 hours talking about experiences, but what were the I don't want to say tools, but what advice would you give to parents that are going through that are and they don't all have to be NFL coaches, obviously, right? But they understand coaching, they understand people, they understand leadership. They may not totally understand the sport that their child is playing, but they understand the characteristics that their child needs to exhibit. What are some of the tools and advice you would give to parents that are dealing with that?
That's a great question, and it's tough. First of all, I think like everybody's got to check their heart, and even as a parent, you have to check your heart a little bit. Like, okay, why is my child involved? Whatever that is, whether it's piano lessons, why is my child involved? Do they want to do it? And you're always gonna have to push kids a little bit, just a little bit, because naturally it's like I don't want to do it, I don't want to go, I'd rather stay home. I'm afraid. I don't have anybody to talk to. Nobody sits with me at lunch. All the things that kids will say why they don't want to do something, and just try to encourage them, and then find the bright spots and the things that that make it just a worthwhile experience. But then check your own heart. Is it am I doing it for my son or daughter because I want them to have a great experience? because I want them to have a smile on their face, because I want them to look back on it and say, man, that was really great and fun, and I learned a lot, and I had I wanted my daughter to have experiences that she would look back on the rest of her life and with in a good way, with a good memory. So if you're driving for the wrong reasons as a parent, you got to check yourself. You got to check yourself. I mean, that's on you, and sometimes parents get mad at coaches because the coach doesn't play my kid as much or whatever. That's the wrong reason. It's like, what are the values? Then as a parent, just take a look at the coach. Where's the coach's heart? Is the coach's heart in the experience that the players have, especially youth sports and high school, junior high, especially youth sports? Does the coach saying, hey, I want your son or daughter to want to come back next year. I want your son or daughter to want to come to practice next week because they love it and they enjoy it and they have fun and they're getting better. And the coach is looking for ways to help them have a good experience. If the coach's heart is in the right place, as a parent, you can kind of tell that. You may not know. I didn't know anything about lacrosse, but I did know a lot about coaches and where their hearts were at, So then you could take a look and say, okay, I'm good with my daughter with this coach. I really like my daughter with this coach because this coach's heart is in the right place. To me, that would be the biggest thing.
And I think I'm safe saying this. Okay, you've coached, you've won a Super Bowl, you're getting ready, you're getting closer to being 20 years as an NFL head coach. I coached 22 years so far at the highest level of Division I basketball, coached in the Final Four. As hard as the Super Bowl is, as hard as playing the Steelers is, as hard as playing a rivalry game is, there's nothing harder than watching your child play. The anguish that you get. I think a lot of people struggle with this because they see their life as a coach, but it's so hard to transition it as a parent. And you have to kind of almost have the same ideals. And the bottom line is, like I always looked at it with our kids, okay? I'm not going to try to tell you how to coach. You don't have to necessarily ask, but I'm not going to try to tell you how to coach, but I do know this. Don't take their spirit and don't create any doubt in them as to what they are. And that's how I judged things. And we have a different perspective because we're coaches. But how did you handle, and I think this is so important for people that struggle with this, okay? Because as a coach and as a leader, parents, and in your case, agents and all the different things that go on, they're being talked about. They're talking about the program, talking about the coach. You get in that car ride with Allison, you get home, you get on the practice court with her. How hard is it as a person that coaches for a living to be the parent not coaching your child, okay, in lieu of the coach, but at the same time giving them the confidence that they need to deal with all the different situations they face?
Well, I always told Allison that, Allison, nobody can play the game like you. She played basketball too, and she was in your basketball camps.
Mm-hmm.
Tom, they were amazing.
Oh
she was the
yeah,
only girl
absolutely.
in your camp one year.
She was one of the leading rebounders.
I just told her, I said, there's nobody that can play it like you. Nobody can do it like you. I always prayed for coaches that would take the skill set that she had and make the most of it, because that's what you want, and that to me is a coach's job. And she had a lot of coaches that did a great job of that. But there's nobody that can play like you. So play like you. Play the way you play. And that should give you all the confidence in the world. Nobody can feed like you. Nobody can see the field like you. Nobody's got as quick a stick as you, whatever it might be. And just look at them and pour into them affirmation about the things they do well. And then the other things is that I would encourage her on was the things that were the non-sport specific things, like, you control how hard you play. You control how physically tough you are. You control how you handle success, and you control how you handle disappointment. These are all the things that you have full control. Allison, you have so much more control. We always say, like, control all you can do is control the things that you can control. Just control the things you can control. And that's true, except for the fact that we underestimate how much we can control, right, Tom? We can control so much. You can control almost everything. Almost everything. And you can control everything about you and how you handle all your circumstances. So try to encourage her to try to do that. Not try to coach her in lacrosse. Now, I tried to play defense against her, Tom, and she would take me to school every single time. But I did my best to kind of give her a good look, when she was practicing out there every day and pouring her heart into practice. So that's kind of how it worked. And your job is to love your child. Your job is not to create anxiety. It's not to harass and harangue your child. Your child should want to have a conversation with you, I think, as a parent. Your child should look forward to you coming home from work. They can't wait to see their dad. Can't wait to see him driving the drive. Let's go play catch, Dad. Let's go shoot the basketball around. Let's get on the piano. Let's do the guitar if that's what you do. Let's go read a book together. Let's take a walk. Okay, let's play with the dog. If your kid should want to be around you because you speak life. You encourage them. You build them up. You tell them how special. They are the only them that will ever be created, that ever has been or ever will be created. And God gave you that child. God gave you. I mean, as frail and weak as we are, as flawed as we are, God still gives us his children to raise. Oh, man. That is an incredibly huge responsibility. And what does he ask you to do? He says, love them. He doesn't say harass them. He doesn't say beat them down. Yeah, you discipline them. Yeah, sure. You want them to do the right thing, but you do it with love. Okay, where's your heart? That's the best advice I could give a parent.
Well, now that Allison is graduated twice, right? Graduated from Notre Dame in 3 years and from the University of South Florida. She's off to law school for the next endeavor. Our three kids, Megan, Riley, Ainsley, all participated in sports. The youngest, Ainsley, is in college. And one common denominator that we have in this is that even when you couldn't be there, you were always present. And you weren't missing things. So maybe there was something that you had to be at. Well, you were going to make sure you saw it on the iPad. But here's one thing that I think is so important, and it's important to hit people right across the eyes with this, because we're both the same way in this. You didn't go on golf junkets and golf weekends. You did your job, and you do it as well as anybody else, right? In the history of football, right? But you did not put your hobbies ahead of what was important to your family, whether it was what your wife Ingrid wanted to do with the hobbies that she pursued, and absolutely being 100% locked into that. But since we're talking about kids, the same thing with Allison. I'm not a golfer. I'm not a tennis player. I don't have those things because I never really took those things up because we didn't want to miss our kids. I think it's important for parents to understand that it is okay. In fact, it's actually the right thing to make sure that you're putting what they're doing at the forefront of what's important to you, even with as busy as their lives are as leaders and coaches. And looking at you, you are a poster man for that, with making sure that you put your child's endeavors at the forefront when you had time to do it.
That's exactly right. You hit it so much on the head, and that's how you've always lived your life. And Joni too. And people ask about they ask about work-life balance. What about work-life balance? It's like, yeah, 100%. That's work-life balance. 100% committed to your family, and 100% committed to your work, because your family takes care of your work, and your work takes care of your family, and they go hand in hand. But if you got a bunch of other stuff going on, if you want to go out and hang out with the boys after work, or you want to go play golf, golf is great, but not at the expense of your kids. Maybe take your kids out and play golf, exactly. Right? I'd probably be a better golfer,
exactly.
But that's really the bottom line. I mean, it's just like I think about how much, like, you talk about caring, and it's because you care your kids and you care about your kids, you want to be around them. But you came to, remember 4 years ago, you came to Spartansburg, South Carolina for the Carolina Panthers versus the Baltimore Ravens practices. Remember that?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the greatest 2 days I've had of leadership,
well, I'm gonna tell you,
of understanding culture.
It was about 110 degrees in that bowl, right? And the second day, man, we had a couple long, tough practices, and we had some guys that were feeling the effects of the heat, and it was like
about 7 of them.
At least 7 of them, right? I mean, I looked at Mark Andrews, and he was on the ground with an IV, and we kind of caught each other's eye with the ambulance people there, and I hate to say it, but I kind of looked at him, and he kind of looked at me, and it's like, he's like, am I going to make it? His eyes. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if you're going to make it or not, Mark. This looks really bad. And we laugh about it now, but, it's like that's what the guys put into it. But we got back to the gym, remember, with the folding chairs, and guys were cramping up, Tom. They were cramping up all over the place. Here, there, the other place. And I look up and I see Tom Crean. You had spoken to the team. The guys know you, they love you, and you're doing triage. You're down there holding guys' hands. You're praying with the guys while they're cramping up. I mean, we still talk about it around here to this day. That's like 100% committed right there.
Well, and that's yeah, and it's you don't think that's just split second reacting, right? And that's parenting, right? I mean that's what parenting is. I mean, at one point there were 4 ambulances down there by that gym, literally 4, and that wasn't the one that Mark Andrews went in early. I mean, it was, but that's so much of what parenting and coaching is. And Jeff Van Gundy had a great saying. He's now coaching with the LA Clippers. He had a great saying. He said, people want you to coach with perspective. You can't coach with perspective, right? You're trying to coach to win. You're trying to coach something to make it great. But as a parent, you have got to have perspective. And I think that's when you look at these young people and you're dealing with it and they're multimillionaires and now from college they're coming as multimillionaires. Some were before at the cheating programs, but now they're coming because it's real and they have it. But it doesn't change anything, right? Mark Andrews' contract and how much money he was going to make and how many catches he had nothing to do with when he looked at you when he's laying there with those cramps that day. And I think that's the part of it as coaches when you put a parental perspective on it with people, and it just becomes very natural. And you're as good as any with that. And I hope people are gaining from this because there's nothing wrong, all right, with being supportive of your child. What there is something wrong is when you're blaming and you're giving your kids excuses because it's rationalization and it's not necessarily real. And but you're giving the exact opposite of what that's all about. You're putting so much into Allison of what she's capable of, which in turn gives her the confidence that she's got to have and had through the adversity. All right, John, let's go back to something when it comes to bringing new players in, and really even over the period of time that they're with you, is something that I see that is incredibly difficult right now in coaching. And there's a lot of different reasons, but the way college sports are right now, it not only with the NIL and the money, but most importantly, maybe with the portal. And that's where Ruben Lowry III is 4 years at Chattanooga. That's not as common as it was 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago. And the thing that I find is there's been so much talk spent on, okay, how does a person learn, right? Are they auditory? Are they visual? All those different things. I think one of the greatest challenges that coaches and leaders have, and I certainly felt this even at near the end at Georgia, is do they really want to learn? And the adaptability to learning. So what are some of the ways that you look at that? Okay, because obviously they're coming into the highest level of the NFL and they're going to give you their very best, at the very beginning. But eventually habits come out, all right? Eventually you can't keep showing a face that may not necessarily be there. And they know they're trying to make the job. But adaptability that you have to want to learn to make changes. What are some of the biggest keys that you see as a coach and a leader yourself, or that you implore upon your staff to have, and that you would give advice on?
I mean, that's a great question because it's got to be a pragmatic answer. I mean, it's one thing to get into all the theory about this person learns better this way and that person learns better that way, and I do think it has value, but everybody's kind of a human being, and everybody learns pretty much in similar ways. There's only so many ways to teach. So basically, in my mind, is like everybody needs to know everything that we're doing. Everybody needs to be on the same page. We need to have a vision, a shared understanding, a vision about how we want to play, and a big picture, broad vision, and also a vision within every single scheme that we run. We have to be completely aligned in how we're going to run cover 3 or a cover 3 zone pressure or a 2 deep zone pressure or an all-out blitz, or whatever it is. Every single person has to be aligned in every aspect of that, and all the nuances that come up in covering a kick or a kick return and all the angles and the geometry. That's an ongoing process. So to say, well, these auditory learners, the visual learners, yeah, we're going to use all these things. We're going to teach every single way we can every single day because we're coaching a group of guys, a group of players here across the board, and we're just going to chase perfection in everything we do. And so, yeah, some people learn better. We're going to do walkthroughs. Some people learn better on video. We're going to show it. Some people learn better by repeating it back. We're going to ask questions and have dialogue. Some people learn better just you got to keep their attention and have fun. So we're going to have games. We have Jeopardy style games that we'll put up, and we'll have fun with all that stuff. I mean, yeah, and you got to take time, and you got to be creative, and you got to be organized. I mean, you got to be a great teacher if you want everybody on the same page. And then you got to bring in great students. It's not like, just anybody. It's not just, well, the person can't figure it out. Well, you can't, as a coach, you can't make that excuse, but it's also, well, he's not teaching me right. It's no, your job is to learn. Your job is to come to work, ready to go to work. You got to lock in. If you're a note taker, take notes. No, not everybody takes notes, but usually the best students, they're usually taking notes, okay? I mean, I have very few who don't take notes. Some don't, and that's okay. But they better be getting it right on the field if they're not, right? And so I think I do think because for us football-wise, Tom, our systems they're really elegantly built. We call it elegant simplicity. We want to build all the complicated aspects into our scheme and system so it can be operated on the field in a real user-friendly way, just like your amazing iPhone is right there. It's your Samsung if that's what you got. It's set up in a way that's easy, user-friendly, but we want our guys to be really really good at running it. Like guys are good at playing video games. Why? Because they do it all the time. They get great at it. Okay, we should be at least as good at playing football and making our defensive adjustments, for instance. But I got to have a bunch of guys that want to work at it, that want to learn. And if we have football IQ guys that want to go to work and want to learn and take pride in the fact that they know what they're doing out there, those guys they're a heck of a lot easier to teach.
What's the biggest question you ask when you get with the scouts and Eric DaCosta's group about how somebody processes learning or if they want to learn? Like, because obviously when you're dealing with a lot of different prospects before you really hone in to who you'd really like to draft, you have to have a snapshot for yourself. What's a question or two you ask them?
Well, that's a good question. I think it's kind of based on the player. Like as you start to hear about the prospect, because the scouts will paint a picture for you of that prospect because they've been to the school, they've talked to the coaches, they've talked to the trainers, the weight coach, they've talked to professors. Sometimes they've talked to friends on campus, guidance counselors. They get to know these guys, and who they are. So I do ask the questions, like what kind of student are they? What kind of a learner are they? How's their football IQ? We call it in the broad sense. How do they understand the game? Can they make sense of the game? Can they process the game in real time? A fighter jet pilot, right? I mean, it's probably one thing to learn all the mechanics of the plane are. It's a whole other thing to get that plane in your hand and run it when all the stuff is happening and to be able to respond and process information and to perform, And that's what football players do or basketball players do. They have to process information, mind and body, and put it all together and make quick decisions and react and play the game. So those are questions that we ask. It's like there's a lot that goes into building the picture. Then when you get the picture of the player, it's like, okay, is he a fit for us? Is he the kind of guy that is gonna play like a Raven, And everybody in our building kind of knows what that means. They don't kind of know; they know exactly what that means not because it's in a definition, because they see it every single day, and we've got a shared understanding, a vision of what that looks like.
This has been so good, and as we wind down, I want to finish with one last subject, which I think is really really important, and because it's the part of it that like people know it goes on, but it's like any other area of life. It's so hard to see coming, but it's even harder to stop it in its tracks. And I think you're really really good at this. And as being in as a high pressure environment in sports as you can possibly be in the NFL. Everything we're talking about is to get to an end picture. Well, along the way, there's a lot of bumps. And those bumps come in the form of conflict. And they come in the form of conflict with one another. And let's dive into the part of player-to-player conflict that comes up. And it could be a myriad of things that create it. As you know, you could go to a grease board and probably write up 1,500 to 2,000 different things that could become conflict. But how do you as a head coach see it coming, try to stop it as quickly as you can, but at the same time give them the tools that they can move forward in so that it doesn't come
That's
back?
such a great question and a complicated question. I don't really have I
I
don't
know.
have a simple answer, but I would say this. First of all, we define conflict. Okay, there's conflict is not necessarily a negative. Conflict kind of gets a bad name sometimes, as you know, Tom. There's
Sure.
good conflict. The kind of conflict that we're looking for is the kind of conflict that makes us better. We're going to confront everything that has to do with being the best football team we can be and being the best player and the best coach we can be. We're going to try to throw off everything that is drag to that. Everything that's not helping us travel fast and travel far together today is drag. It's not needed. It doesn't need to be around. We can't be getting involved with all that. So you said, and the definition is like, okay, I'm willing. Criticism is a great way of saying that you care. If I'm willing to come to you, if I'm willing to take the chance to say to you, hey, you know what? You need to be. I think this would help you be better if you'd get your eyes on your man and keep him there in man coverage throughout the course of the route until you get into the catch cylinder. If that's something you really need to work on. If I'm willing to put myself out there and take a chance of you being mad at me for confronting that issue, that means I care about you. Okay, that's the biggest form of respect I can give you. I'm also willing to tell you that I think you're doing great, and I do that probably 9 out of 10 times. So I've got to accept that criticism as being someone that's taking a chance because they want to see me do well, right? So how do I accept it? So that has a lot to do with the conflict. Like if I don't take it the right way, the conversation I'm having, if I take it like as well, this guy doesn't like me or he's attacking me in some way, then conflict happens. So we try to like set all those bars from the day one when we first come in here, guys. This is how we approach confrontation, conflict. This is how we approach one another. This is how we deal with one another. And then if it gets to the point where it's past that, where it's like not good, and it becomes sort of maybe the basis of it is selfish or something that's personal that happens outside the building, we just ask the question, is this helping? Is this helping us? Does this really have a place here? Really, guys? I mean, and then a lot of times you can squelch it right away because, most guys are, if you got good guys, you got to start with that. If you have good people, then most people go, yeah, okay, cool, we're good. Give me a hug, we're good, okay? We can move on from it. Some things, Tom, we just squelch down and we just bury, and we forget about. Maybe the psychologist wouldn't agree with that, but some things you just got to leave. You got to leave at the side of the road, man. Just leave them off, throw them away.
Yeah. You're in a high pressure environment, and it's always real time, real bullets. I mean, it's coming, man. It's coming fast, and that adaptability.
Sometimes the guy's got to just say, you know what, man, I was out of line. I just the heat of the moment. But you don't even have to say. It's great if you say I'm sorry about that. I think as a coach you should say I'm sorry. I stepped over the line. The players may or may not do that, but at least they could say, hey, man, it's cool. We cool? We're cool. Sometimes it's enough. Other times you got to dig in. And if you have to dig in, then it gets tougher, But if people care about one another and you have good people, you can usually work through it.
Let's finish with that willingness to dig in, because that's what separates a lot of great leaders in the sense from good leaders is how deep will they go to fix that problem, right? There's the old saying, okay, you can fix a problem, but you have to manage a dilemma, right? And as a leader, you've got to know the difference. But let's finish with that. How hard is that process? Or give us an example without naming names where you had to go deep. Because a lot of times those problems, if you're going to win football games, it's not just about the football. I mean, you're dealing with them, and you're not a guy that's just going to turn over every outside of football issue to somebody else. You're going to attack it head on, or you wouldn't be the coach and leader that you are. What's maybe an example of something you've had to deal with?
Well, I think some of the biggest examples come up like surrounding the pressure, the outside pressures that the players face. The social media, it's just become an onslaught. It's sort of the crowd, man. Every single day, it's one thing to walk into the stadium and you're getting yelled at by the Steelers or the Patriots fans, and they're saying all kind of nasty things to you. Baseball, the guys, the heckler, you can kind of deal with that because it's got its place. But boy, you get on that phone, and you start reading these things that get said, and now it becomes a little more personal. And then sometimes, guys, because of the tag, all the stuff that they do as far as tagging each other or whatever, they'll get into a back and forth sometimes, and it's not really real. It's not a real place, and yet it becomes really, or they'll get into it. Sometimes someone will say something like I've had maybe one of the players will tweet something, or a coach will say something in a press conference, and it'll be taken a certain way, and then, man, you got a problem, and you said this about me, and that wasn't right. What we've done is you just get the two people together. You just bring them in, you sit them down, and you just say, hey, man, what's up? What's going on? You're a good person. You're a good person. What happened here? And just basically talk it out. And I think when you just do that, it's really, I can't remember a time, Tom, where that didn't fix things. And there's been times where we've had these conversations and you left the meeting or you left the moment and it really wasn't fixed yet people kind of held their positions a little bit, and you just got to go, okay, okay, that's where we're at with it. We'll just live with it, and we'll be in a good place. I had one time with Ed Reed. This is way back. This might have been 29, 2010, and Ed and I, we talked football, secondary. We talked quarters coverage all the time. I was always asking him questions about how to play different things because he was so brilliant of a football player. But there was a time where we had a disagreement on something. I couldn't even tell you what it was now, and he was mad at me, and I was mad at him. We weren't seeing eye to eye on something, and I remember seeing him in the cafeteria, and we hadn't spoken for about a week, and he was making a point not to talk to me, and I probably wasn't going out of my way to talk to him. And he was taking his tray back, and I got fell in behind him, and not because I tried to, just because it worked out that way. And I just said, "Hey, man," I know you're mad at me, and you might not talk to me for a while, but let me tell you something. Uh, I love you, and just so you know, I don't hold a grudge. And that's all I could think to say. And he kind of looked at me like, and if you think about it, like I look back at it, what am I saying? I'm basically saying, I'm not saying I'm wrong because I don't think I'm wrong. Actually, I
Exactly.
think you're wrong, but I'm not going to hold it against you. So I accept
I
your
love it. I
apology.
love
And he and I have laughed about it since, and he kind of looked at me, and after that, we were good. We were good, So I don't know. I just think sometimes in the moment you figure out how to handle stuff.
Absolutely. Well, and this is what this interview has been. I mean, the Harbaugh Coaching Academy. The Harbaughs didn't become who they are in a cookie cutter. Wake up on third base, thought they hit a triple way. Like this is real,
Where'd you get that
and
quote
this
from,
has been
Tom?
an. I've read that before. I've heard that before. We have a family member that's used it once or twice. But bottom line is this is what it's all about, right? And I think people that follow the Harbaugh Coaching Academy, that follow the family, they've come to see that it's real, right? What they see on television, what they see in the games, what they hear in the press conferences, what they hear after you go see Donald Trump with the family in the White House, they've come to see like this is real. And that's exactly what this podcast is. And I think people are going to gain a lot from this. I think it'll take off. I think people that tune in to learn from you and to learn from this are really, really going to benefit. So thanks for the time. It's been fun to do.
Tom, I just want to thank you for doing this. I mean, this is part of the Harbaugh Coaching Academy, and this is something that people are going to love. I mean, you're going to do this show, and you're going to put people in touch with people in the business, coaching, but also business and military and every other kind of a field, every kind of sport, and just talk about what leadership looks like, talk about what coaching looks like, talk about what to develop young people, what it means to do it. You got such a great understanding of people and coaching and what makes people tick. I just am so thankful and grateful for you for doing this. People are going to love it. It's been a lot of fun, and can't wait to see where we go with this.
Well, as long as I've known you and as long as I've loved you, as good as this was, I wish I'd have had somebody sitting here taking notes because as soon as we can get it back, I probably learned 12, 13, 14 different things that I didn't know. And we talk all the time. So, I mean, that's the beauty of when you're in the environments that leaders are in. It's ongoing. It goes back to what Bill Parcells said a long time ago. The great Bill Parcells had a lot of great quotes, but this was one that it's so important to live by. That a leader should expect up to 5 unexpected things to come their way on any given day, and how that leader handles those 5 unexpected things defines their leadership. And you're getting 5 unexpected things in the morning, in the afternoon, in the night, and sometimes in an hour. And that's what leadership is. That's what leadership is. And all the different ways to have different tools from different people that help people be their very best. We covered coaching, we covered leadership, most importantly, we covered parenting, and it all goes down the line. So this was great to do this with you for the Harbaugh Coaching Academy. I'm looking forward to it, and I think people are going to gain a lot from this.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom. Love you, brother.